This is a short story of how I saw a man in my room after playing hide and seek in the dark many years back. I am now 13, turning 14 this year. I am a Mexican girl living in San Lucas, Mexico, with my mom, dad, and 2 younger sisters. I was playing hide and seek late in the dark just for fun because I was bored, and I was playing with the family for hours. After many hours, we finally stopped playing and decided to go back home. After I got home, I went straight to sleep. I then woke up in the middle of the night around 2 a.m. to see a man with a cowboy hat and coat standing at my door. I was shocked, but tried to fall back to sleep, trying to convince myself it was all a nightmare. But it wasn't. It was all real, and I know it was. I woke up the next morning to my mom cooking breakfast at around 7 or 8 a.m., and I went to my dad and asked, "Did you go in my room last night at around 2 a.m.? I said, "No, I wasn't awake at around 2 a.m. in the morning," my dad said. "I saw a man in a hat and a coat in my room," I told him. "Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" I wasn't. It was all real. I saw a man in my room. I tried to explain, and I haven't seen that man since this day.
When I was a kid, my parents would sometimes bring me down to my aunt and uncle's place to stay for the weekend. Mainly I spent time playing with my 2 cousins who were around the same age as me. They lived on a small farm with plenty of open space, and we could run around and pretty much do whatever we wanted. If we thought we could get away with it, the 3 of us would sometimes cross over to the neighboring farm about a half a mile away. It had been abandoned for decades, with a scattering of derelict buildings and other sculptures still standing on the property, just begging to be explored. This was, of course, a gold mine for 3 adventurous young boys as ourselves, especially after my cousins told me stories about how the place was haunted. It was a pretty classic fare. Man goes crazy, axe murders his family, hangs himself, and returns every night as an angry spirit looking for new victims. Good, grisly stuff. Even at that age, I knew they were probably making it up, or at least embellishing old rumors. But seeing as how the setting lent itself so well with such a tale, I allowed myself to buy into it. One afternoon, we decided to play hide and seek. When it was my turn to hide, I ran off for a flimsy brown barn that had living quarters on top. I climbed the stairs looking for a good spot. There was still furniture inside, musty and rotten, and personal belongings lay scattered across the floor. I maneuvered over broken dishes, tattered clothing, and crumbled books, eventually coming to a small bedroom with a closet. Jackpot. There were even long black dresses still hanging on the rods that I could hide myself behind. I stepped inside and managed to force shut the folding door. My only illumination was a slit of sunlight that shone through the crack in the door from nearby windows. I crouched down with knees tucked into chest and waited. Some time passed, and there was still no sign of my seekers. I waited some more, debating if and when I should give myself up. After nearly an hour, this was starting to get boring. My head drooped. I awoke with a jerk. It was pitch black. Drowsy and confused, I forgot for a minute where I was, or what I had been doing. As it slowly came back to me, the realization that it was now night and that I've been abandoned here filled me with a sinking dread in the pit of my stomach. I tried to get up, but a sudden cramp in my calf left me grounded. I squirmed about, waiting for it to pass, when I heard a door slam shut downstairs and instantly froze. One of my cousins? There was a brief period of silence, then footsteps at the bottom of the stairs. But not just footsteps, a thud too, after every other step. These weren't the footfalls of a child. They were very slow and heavy and deliberate. I held my breath, praying for them to just go away, but they did not. The noises continued to ascend. They reached the top of the staircase. After another moment of silence, the walking resumed, this time along with a steady scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across the floorboards. The footsteps made their way through the debris and wandered aimlessly through the various rooms. I thought I could smell something faintly putrid. The consistent scraping sent cold shivers coursing through my arms and back. My worst fears were realized when the steps reached the bedroom doorway. They got closer and closer and finally stopped directly in front of the closet door. I couldn't see a thing. After an agonizing pause, they continued on and over to the other side of the room and out of the doorway again. They faded away down the hallway. I waited for what seemed like an eternity. There were no more sounds now, and I was trying to build up enough courage to open the door and flee. 3 things happened simultaneously just then. I was bombarded with a smell that I could only describe as fresh roadkill. I heard raspy breathing behind me in the dark closet, and I felt hot breath against the nape of my neck. That was enough for me to hurtle myself out of the confines of that nightmare space, relying on memory and scant moonlight to navigate through the darkened house. All the while I heard footsteps chasing me, closing in on the terrifying speed. It was a clumsy and treacherous escape, filled with trips and bumps and blind stumbling. I never looked back, at least not until I bursted out of the front door and into the country night. And when I did, I turned around and saw absolutely nothing. There were no more footsteps and nobody was chasing me. That didn't stop me from running though, all the way back to my aunt's and uncle's house. There was a police car in the driveway when I got back. My parents were there too, worried sick. Everybody demanded to know where I'd been. Apparently, when my cousins hadn't found me by evening, they returned home to tell their parents. Eventually, the police were called in and informed me that they had already scoured every building on the farm. The insinuation that I was lying about my whereabouts didn't go unnoticed. None of it made any sense. It wasn't until years later that one of my cousins filled in the final piece of the story. He and his brother had spent hours searching for me like they said. But the part that they didn't tell anyone was that they thought they spotted me in one of the windows of the bedroom I was hiding in. When they got closer, they saw that it wasn't me. A younger boy neither of them recognized was smiling and waving down at them and gesturing for them to come upstairs. That's when they ran back home. All this while I slept in the closet.